city was gone. Not just destroyed, but utterly erased. A once thriving metropolis now reduced to molten rock and crumbling earth, its towering skyscrapers torn apart like paper under the weight of an unimaginable force. The air shimmered with heat and thick, choking dust swirled to the wasteland where life had once thrived. Deep fissures ran to the ground, splitting open like the scars of an angry god. Rivers boiled, mountains collapsed, and the very planet trembled as if in fear. At the heart of it all, standing amidst the devastation, was a being unlike any other, World-Breaker Hulk. His enormous form radiated with pure gamma energy, pulsing in sickly green waves that distorted the very fabric of reality. His muscles, forged by rage and raw destruction, flexed with power capable of crushing worlds. His skin burned with internal heat, cracks forming along his body, leaking an emerald glow that hinted at the sheer volcanic pressure surging inside him. His breath was slow and deliberate, each exhale sending ripples of gamma radiation through the air, warping everything around him. His fists clenched, and with that simple action, the earth beneath his feet caved in, unable to withstand his presence. His eyes, glowing like twin suns, stared ahead at the only thing that remained standing. A single man, Saitama, the bald-headed hero, stood at the edge of the destruction, his yellow jumpsuit still spotless despite the chaos surrounding him. His white cape fluttered gently in the waves of heat rolling off the green titan, yet his expression remained unchanged. Not impressed, not afraid, just uninterested. Saitama raised an eyebrow, glancing around at the carnage. "Man," he muttered, scratching his head, "I was just out shopping for groceries." The devastation had come without warning. One moment, he was heading home with a bag of discounted leeks. The next, the entire city had been leveled in an instant. He barely had time to react before this giant, glowing muscle had appeared out of nowhere, radiating enough power to make even some of the strongest monsters he had faced look like ants. And yet, Saitama felt nothing. This wasn't new. Time and time again, he had been promised excitement, a real challenge. But in the end, it always ended the same way. One punch and it was over. Still, something about this green guy was different. The energy rolling off him wasn't just strong, it was overwhelming. He had fought gods, monsters, and interdimensional conquerors. But this was one of the few times he actually felt the weight of someone's presence. He stared at Hulk for a moment before sighing. "Guess I can't just go home yet, huh?" Hulk's breathing grew heavier. He could feel it. This tiny man before him was strong. Strong in a way that defied reason. Hulk had faced gods, rulers of the cosmos, and champions of the multiverse. He had endured wars that shook the stars, battles that defied time itself. Yet somehow, this ordinary-looking man felt more dangerous than any foe he had ever faced. And worst of all, he wasn't afraid. That infuriated Hulk. With a growl that rumbled like an earthquake, Hulk took a step forward. The very planet shook beneath his weight, the shockwave flattening mountains in the distance. Another step, and the sky darkened as the atmosphere reacted violently to his mere presence. He clenched his fists, and with a simple act of tensing his muscles, a surge of gamma energy exploded outward, carving trenches into the earth and turning the air itself into a toxic storm. Saitama barely blinked. "All right, big guy," he muttered, rolling his shoulders. "Let's get this over with." Boom! Hulk lunged forward, the sheer force of his movement igniting the air around him. His fist, larger than Saitama's entire torso, came down like a meteor, a single punch capable of shattering a planet. The very force of the strike sent out a shockwave so powerful, it disintegrated clouds and ripped apart the Earth's crust for miles. And yet, Saitama wasn't there. With a simple, effortless sidestep, he dodged the attack, the motion so fast it was almost imperceptible. Hulk's fist slammed into the Earth, and the planet screamed in agony. The entire continent cracked like fragile glass, tectonic plates shifting violently as magma erupted from the gaping wound left behind. But Saitama just stood there. "Whoa!" he said, blinking at the destruction. "That almost made me move." Hulk roared. His glowing green veins pulsed, his muscles swelled, and an aura of pure destruction surrounded him. He had held back. He always held back. But not this time. not against this man. With a monstrous bellow, Hulk swung again, faster, harder. This time, his punch carried the force of a dying star collapsing on itself, a strike that could obliterate anything in its path. Saitama's eyes narrowed. For the first time in what felt like forever, he raised a hand. He caught the punch. The shockwave alone erased an entire mountain range. The force of the impact so great it sent hurricanes spiraling across the globe. Oceans swelled, the very fabric of reality trembled, and the air itself tore apart as two immeasurable forces collided. Yet Saitama stood firm. Hulk's massive fist rested in his palm, frozen in place. The Green Titan's massive muscles strained, veins bulging as he tried to push forward, but it was useless. Saitama's expression remained blank. He looked down at Hulk's fist, tilting his head slightly. "Huh," he muttered. "That's not bad." Hulk's eyes widened. His rage boiled over, and his power escalated. His body shone brighter, the sheer amount of gamma energy inside him reaching an unprecedented level. And then, boom, Hulk unleashed it all. The world erupted. The very planet itself was now at the mercy of a force beyond comprehension. The atmosphere ripped apart, the sky turned red, and the sheer shockwave of Hulk's full power sent moons spiraling out of orbit. The planet's gravitational field buckled, and distant stars flickered under the intensity of his unleashed wrath. And yet, through the dust, through the collapsing world, through the storm of destruction, a figure remained, still standing, still unmoved. Saitama's hand gripped Hulk's fist tightly, his fingers barely indenting from the force. He slowly looked up, his blank expression finally shifting, just a little. A small grin formed. "All right," he said, finally feeling something stir inside him. "This might be fun." The battle had truly begun. A silence followed, not the absence of sound, but a devastating quiet, the kind that only comes before something truly unimaginable happens. The world was on the brink of collapse, the very fabric of existence trembling under the weight of two beings who should not exist on the same battlefield. Hulk, now a true world breaker, stood radiating with uncontainable power. His crimson-green glow had turned blinding, as though he were a living star about to go supernova. The sheer pressure of his presence crushed the surrounding landscape, warping reality itself. Every molecule around him screamed under the weight of his power. Yet Saitama was completely unaffected. The bald hero stood in the eye of the storm, his cape fluttering violently, his hand still firmly gripping Hulk's massive fist. No strain, no hesitation, just the same casual grip that made it clear he wasn't even trying. Hulk roared, an earth-splitting cry that shook the heavens. His rage was beyond words now, beyond thought. He was pure destruction, a force that could not be stopped. With everything he had, Hulk pulled his arm back, finally breaking free of Saitama's grip. In that instant, his power surged, a final, desperate effort to bring down this impossible foe. He raised both fists high, his muscles bulging beyond reason. Energy exploded out, a swirling mass of gamma destruction, enough to reduce an entire solar system to dust. And then he swung down, a double-handed strike, fueled by more power than any being in the universe should be able to wield. A strike that could unmake existence itself. A strike that could never be stopped. Until it was. Saitama punched first, and everything ended. The impact wasn't loud. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't even a shockwave. It was just nothing. For a fraction of a second, all movement ceased. The air vanished. The heat, the energy, the violence, all gone. It was as if the universe itself had held its breath in that single moment. Then, like a string snapping, reality returned, and with it came the end. The force of Saitama's punch didn't just hit Hulk. It erased the very concept of the battle. The shockwave didn't travel outward. It simply consumed everything in its path. Hulk's body froze mid-motion, his eyes widening in sheer disbelief. For the first time, not just in this fight, but in his entire existence, he felt it. Defeat. His indestructible body gave way. His limitless strength failed. His rage, the very thing that defined him, shattered like fragile glass. And then, in the blink of an eye, Hulk was gone. Not dead, not destroyed, just gone. Saitama stood alone, his fist still extended, his expression neutral. The battlefield, the entire planet, had changed. The wasteland that once surrounded them had been completely reshaped. What was once a scarred ruin of city was now a perfectly flat, empty stretch of land. Every mountain, every crater, every sign that a battle had ever happened, erased. The sky was blue again. The dust had settled. The world had reset itself, as if acknowledging the absolute finality of Saitama's punch. He lowered his fist, letting out a small sigh. Well, he looked around. The silence was unsettling. After all the noise, all the destruction, all the buildup, it was over. Just like that. He didn't feel anything. No sense of victory. No rush of excitement. Not even a drop of sweat. Just the same familiar emptiness. Guess I should go home. With a shrug, he turned, his cape flaring behind him as he casually walked away, leaving behind nothing but absolute proof of his power. The battle was over, and as always, Saitama had won with one punch.